Hello, today I'm going to show you how to use the SLAQ site level summary templates. The Nutrition Policy Institute created these templates for each site level assessment questionnaire, or SLAQ, which are used to assess policy systems and environmental change, also known as PSE, in the following settings: elementary schools, secondary schools, early care and education sites, out of school time sites, and retail stores. The summary templates I will be demonstrating today are intended to help local health departments compare SLAQ data at one site across 2 time points. The template allows you to compare consecutive or non-consecutive years of data. For example, you can look at changes from 2021 to 2022 or from 2021 to 2023. This video will demonstrate all features of the templates and provide a step-by-step guide on how to use it when you have data you want to compare. For this demonstration, we will use the elementary school SLAQ site level report template shown here. The steps shown in this video are the exact same steps you would take if using any of the other templates we created. We have templates for ECE, OST, elementary school, secondary school, and retail. Let's take a tour of each tab in the template and its purpose. When opening up this Excel file, you will see 5 tabs that include instructions, common terms, data entry, results tables, and results charts. Starting with the instructions tab. This tab goes over the purpose of the template, steps you will take to use the template, what this template does not do, materials you need to use the template, and lastly, an overview of the different tabs and features you will see in the template. We recommend reading the instructions thoroughly before beginning your analysis. The Common Terms tab goes over terminology used in the template. It is important to review the terms and definitions so that you understand the instructions. We recommend you read this tab after reading the Instructions tab. The Data Entry tab is where you will be entering your SLAQ data. You will spend the most time on this tab. The Results Tables and Results Charts tabs display the automatically generated results that are produced from the data you enter into the Data Entry tab. These tables and charts can be printed out directly or copy and pasted into other communication materials. Now that we have a general overview, let's start going over the instructions. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose of this template is to compare data at one site across 2 time points. One site, that is key. This template can't be used to aggregate data across multiple sites. It also cannot compare data between 2 different sites. What the template can do is compare data collected at 2 time points for either one school, one early care and education site, one retail site, or one out of school time site. We are currently working on a separate tool to compare change over time across multiple sites. This template also is not intended to be shared outside of your organization. We encourage you to either copy and paste or print the tables and charts from the Results tab before sharing publicly. I will show you how to do this later in the video. Now that we have gone over what this template can and cannot do, let's start using it. For this demonstration, I'm going to use practice data for an elementary school. Looking at the instructions, the materials needed section states that I'm going to need 2 years of data for one site. To learn more about how a site is defined in the template, you can pop over to the Common Terms tab. For this template, a site is defined as an elementary school where SLAQ data was collected and where PSE changes are implemented. Since this is an elementary school, we will need 2 years of elementary SLAQ data. We can either use the SLAQ feature reports, which are reports that you get through email submission of the SLAQ. Here is an example of the SLAQ feature report. Or if you don't have SLAQ feature reports for a site, you can also use your SLAQ export data that is available in your LHD folder. Here is an example of SLAQ export data. To access your export data, you will go into your LHC SharePoint folder. Later on in this video, I will demonstrate how to navigate to these folders in SharePoint. Okay. Now that we have our 2 data sets or SLAQ feature reports, we are ready to start using this template. These 5 steps are what we'll be doing next to demonstrate how this template works. Step 1 says to review the common terms page. Let's read through each of the terms and definitions because they come up throughout the template. Site, the elementary school where SLAQ data was collected and where policy systems and environmental changes are implemented. Site level data refers to the data that is specific to one school. SLAQ export data. This reviews to SLAQ data provided to local health departments. SLAQ data can be accessed through either your SLAQ export data sets, Excel files that are provided annually by the Nutrition Policy Institute and put in your local health department SharePoint folder, or the SLAQ feature reports, Word files that are sent via email after a SLAQ is entered into Survey 123. If you are unsure how to access your SLAQ export data in the SharePoint folder or feature reports, contact evaluatesnaped@ucanr.edu. FFY 20XX. This refers to the fiscal year for the first time point of SLAQ output data. This becomes important on the data entry page. In our example we're doing today, we're going to be comparing fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22 data. So fiscal year 21 is our first time point of data. FFY 20YY. This refers to the fiscal year for the second time point of SLAQ output data. Replace the YY with the last 2 digits of the year the data are for. In our example, we are comparing fiscal year 21 to 22. So 22 is our second time point of data. Now that we've reviewed the terms, we can move on to step 2, which is to enter our data into the data entry tab. There's a note in the instructions about tan colored boxes. If you go to the data entry tab, you will see tan boxes shown here. These are instructions that help guide your use of the template. You will also see blue shaded boxes. This is where you put your SLAQ data. All blue boxes should be completely filled out by you. So here's an example of it completely filled out. Okay, I'm going to flip over to a completely new template that is blank so we can start entering our data. So I have downloaded a template and there's nothing entered into it already. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use this template with both sources of SLAQ data, the data exports and feature reports. We're going to start with the SLAQ feature reports. In our example, we have 2 SLAQ feature reports for a school named NPI Elementary. So here are the 2 SLAQ feature reports. And we can confirm that these are both for NPI Elementary, as you can see here. Okay, so our first step, now that we have our feature reports, is to start with fiscal year 21 and enter that data first. And before we do that, we're going to also fill out these top 2 boxes, which ask for the elementary school name. In this case, it would be NPI Elementary. So we would just type that in here. And the site ID, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, once that is complete, we can look over at these instructions which tell us that the first thing we want to do is to update the fiscal years, which is written here as FFY 20XX and FFY 20YY. It says here that FFY 20XX is our first year of data that we want to compare against. If we go back to the common terms page, we see that it's the federal fiscal year for the first data time point of SLAQ output data. And we're going to replace the XX with the last 2 digits of the year of data for the data entry sheet. So in this case, it would be 21 because our first year of data is for fiscal year 21. And our second year of data is for fiscal year 22. So we replace those 2 numbers here, like so. Now we're going to open up the fiscal year 21 feature report. And we're going to start by entering the percent points possible for each section into this first column here, column D, the one that is underneath fiscal year 21. Let me slide this over a little bit so we have some room to look at both at the same time. And we have, in order to find this data, we're going to scroll down to the very bottom of our feature report here. And we have an image of this here. So if you want to see what it looks like, we have an example. And on this chart, it has a percent points possible. And we see we've got this on our final page of our summary report. We've got this table called percent points possible. And we also have the section names. And so right here it says, for this row, we're going to put in the section 1 percent points possible. So if we go over to our chart, we see that's 61.36. So we're going to type in here. We're going to put in 61.36. And we have a note, we don't want to put the percent symbol when we're entering the data because this will cause the automated calculations to break and you will not see the results tabs. So we're just going to go ahead and enter in all of them without the percent symbol. So 56.25. 50% for section 3, 28.57 for section 4. And again, we're getting this from our SLAQ feature report, 55.56 for section 5. Section 6 is 37.5. Section 7 is 72%. And section 8 is 54.17. And the total, which is the final row, was 54.75. So now that we've entered in the percent scores, we're going to also want to complete the COVID impact questions. In the feature report, scroll to section 1 and find the COVID impact question. So for COVID impact question 1, we see that our template tells us that should be question 1.12. So if we scroll down to question 1.12, we see the COVID impact question for section 1, and we see that a yes is selected. So using the drop-down list, we're going to click yes. And we're just going to do that for all of the questions, the COVID impact questions in the feature report. So the next one is question 2.22. So if we scroll down in our feature report to that question, we see that yes is also selected. So we'll select yes here. And we'll go to section 3, which is question 3.12 for the COVID impact question. And we see that neither checkbox is selected. So in this case, on our data entry template, we put missing. And we keep going. Section 4, question 4.8, we have a yes. So we'll put yes from the dropdown. Section 5. It's question 5.5, and again, nothing was selected, so we're going to put missing for that response because neither no or yes was selected. And then for section 6, COVID impact question is 6.7. Again, neither response option was selected, so we're going to click missing. And for section 7, we are going to go to question 1.2. Again, we have missing. And for section 8, we're going to scroll down to question 8.8. And again, the response options are missing for that question. Great. So we've entered all of our fiscal year 21 data using our feature report for that fiscal year. And now we're going to do the same thing, but for fiscal year 22. So we open up our fiscal year 22 report, and we're going to scroll down to the final page where we've got the percent section scores. So here's that final page there. And again, like on the previous one, we're just going to start putting in the numbers as we see them for each section. So for section 1, we need the section 1 percent points possible. So that's that last column here, section 1. So that was 79.55. And again, we're not going to include the percentages as we go down this list. And that is because if we include the percentages, the automatic calculations won't work. So we just need the numbers. And we don't have to do any changes to the numbers. We can type them in just as they are. The Excel knows that they're percents already. 75, 70.21. Yep, and then 78.57, and lastly, 72.1. Okay, so we did our percent possible questions, and again, now we go down to our COVID impact questions. So we're going to, in our feature report, scroll back up to section 1. And the first feature report question is question 1.2, and we see a yes is marked here, so we're going to use the drop-down list to find the yes. And then for section 2, the COVID impact question is 2.22. So we're going to scroll down question 2.22, and it's a yes. A yes is selected here, so we're going to select a yes on our template. Yes. And then let's see what question. Section 3, it's question 312. So we'll go to 3.12, and we've got a yes selected. So we go down to our drop down, we click yes. Section 4 is question 4.8. We've got a yes selected, so we will click yes. Section 5, we've got a yes selected, so we will select yes here. Question 6, we have a 6.7, we've got a yes selected, so we will click yes for that COVID question. Section 7's COVID question is 7.12. We've got a no selected for that one, so we will click no here. And section 8, we have a no for COVID impact, so we will click no here. Okay, so we have entered all of our data in columns D and E on our template. Now we just want to check to make sure that everything was entered correctly. So is everything that's blue shaded completely filled out? Yes. There are no blanks. If it was missing, we put a missing in. So all of these boxes should have something in them. For the percent possible questions, these should all be filled out, and there should be no percent symbols, which we don't have. And for these, we should have used the drop down to either select 1, 0, yes, no, or missing. And I'll show you what the other things look like with the other data export. Great, so we've double checked that everything is entered and in the correct place. Now we get to view the findings. So let's look at the results tables first. As you can see, the tables have been automatically updated with our results. On the side, you see these tan boxes, which assist you in interpreting the results. Everything was filled out. So for table 1, you would interpret like this. for this fiscal year 21 column, you would say that in fiscal year 21, the percent of total score for section 1 was 61%. And in 22, the percent total score for section 1 was 80%. And then you would also see this change score, which can be interpreted as from fiscal year 21 to 22, there was an 18% change in the site score for section 1. A positive percent indicates that the score went up between years, and a negative percent, like shown here, indicates that the score has gone down. For table 2, we are going to interpret the sections like this. So this first fiscal year 21 column is basically the total number of sections that were impacted by COVID-19 in fiscal year 21. And this, in our table, that would be 3 sections. In fiscal year 2022, we see that 6 sections have been impacted by COVID-19, and that the percent change in the number of sections impacted by COVID-19 between fiscal year 21 to 22 was 100%. A negative percent here would indicate that the number of impacted sections went down over time, and a positive percent here would mean that the number of sections that were impacted has gone up over time. And a 0% change means that there was no change in the number of sections impacted between the 2 fiscal years. And lastly, for table 3, we see each of the sections listed, and there's check marks for each of them. So a check mark indicates that the section had been impacted by COVID-19 in that fiscal year. So in fiscal year 21, we see that 3 sections have been impacted. And then in fiscal year 22, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections have been impacted. We also want to point out that we've got these additional optional blue boxes here, and those are opportunities for you to add any notes or explanations that you would like to what you're observing in the chart. So we have some examples of things you might write. You might write COVID impact, staff shortages, funding, etc. So you can write those notes to yourself to help with the interpretation of the charts. One thing to note is that all of these are protected so that the columns cannot be accidentally adjusted or changed. However, you are able to adjust the row and column width, so you can do a little bit of formatting like that. And you can also copy and paste these into another document. So if I open up a new Word document here, say this is a communication material, I can copy and paste that into here, and now I have a nice chart available to me in my communication material. And then when it's here, you can make any changes you want. Okay, the other thing you can do is you can also print out these sheets directly. So if you go up to File and then Print, you can actually print out the different tables directly from Excel. So that's another thing you're able to do from this document. So now that we've reviewed the tables, let's look at the charts. The Charts tab contains 4 tables that take the information from the Data Entry tab and create nice data visualizations. As a note, the charts are editable and the label can be moved by you as needed. So I can show you how that looks. And once your charts, labels, and titles are positioned as you desire, you can copy and paste the charts into other documents or print out directly in Excel. So you can select this and Command C, and you can put it into an Excel like this. As a picture, like so. Or if you would rather just print out directly from here, you can do File, Print, and you can print out the charts directly from this document. Great. So now that you know how to use your SLAQ feature report data to generate site level summary reports for SLAQ data comparing 2 fiscal years for the same site, the steps performed to generate these results can be applied to any of the report templates we have available. We're now going to show you how to enter the data using the SLAQ export data instead of the SLAQ feature report. Like I said earlier, either the SLAQ feature reports or the data exports can be used to enter data into this template. So we're going to close this down and we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use a SLAQ feature report instead. We're going to get a clean template to help us with that. To access your data exports in SharePoint, you want to go to your LHD file. So if you go to your SharePoint, you will have your LHD folder, and within there you'll have a folder for SLAQs. And then you're going to navigate to the 2 years of data you want to compare. In this case, we're comparing fiscal year 21 and 22. So we're going to click on fiscal year 21, and we're going to go to the data exports, and we're going to download the most recent data set for that year. So in this case, that would be September 2021. And we want to use the most recent year so that we can ensure that all the sites that we have entered into Survey 123 are in this data set. And then once we download it, which we would download from SharePoint, just going here and then download, we can open it up and confirm that the site that we want is in there. So in this case, we've got MPI Elementary, and it's right here in our data set. We're going to repeat that process for finding export data for both fiscal years you're comparing. So in this case, we're comparing fiscal year 21 and 22. So you'd want to download export data for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. So that was the 21 data. Now we're going to go here and we're going to collect the fiscal year 22 data, and we would download this here. Download. All right, so once you have your export data, open up your summary template to the data entry page, like we've done here. Like before, you're going to complete the site information section. So you're going to enter the name and the site ID, MPI Elementary, site ID 12345. You're also going to want to update the fiscal year 20XX and the fiscal year 20YY to the correct year labels. In our example, we're comparing 2021 and 2022 data. So we're going to replace the XX in fiscal FFY 20XX to 21, and we're going to replace the YY with 22 for fiscal year 2022. All right, now we're ready to start entering our data from the data exports. But before we do that, I find it easiest if we go into our data exports and we do a little bit of prep before. Part of that prep involves highlighting all the variables that we are going to be using from the data set in blue. So you can figure out which variables you need from your data set by looking at your data entry template, which shows which ones you need here. So for export data, you're going to need S1%, S2%, S3%, etc. And you're also going to need the COVID impact questions, which are either titled S1 COVID impact or question 1.12, S2 COVID impact or 2.22. So you can go into your export data and you can literally find those variables and highlight them. So I highlighted 1.12 because that's one of the COVID impact questions. And also at the end of the data set, we've got all the different percent questions. So you're going to do that for both years of data. And then once you've located and highlighted all of them, you're going to filter your data by the school that you want to use. So in this case, I'm interested in using MPI Elementary. So I'm going to go to school name and I'm going to click on MPI Elementary. And then I'm going to select both the variable name and the row that I want, and I'm going to do Command C. And then I'm going to open up a new sheet, and I'm just going to print those. I'm going to Command V those and copy them over. And then I'm going to click on this down arrow for the control pop-up box, and I'm going to transpose my data. And I do that because it's a little bit easier to read things in a vertical orientation than horizontal. It requires less scrolling. And because I can then also filter my data by going up here, and I can filter by color. And once I filter by color, the only things listed for this elementary school, MPL Elementary, are the response options for the variables that we wanted for data entry. So that's why I like doing this a little bit of prep first, because it makes it a little bit easier during data entry to get all of this data in here. So that's why I do that. And now we're going to, that we have the data the way we want it, we can start copy and pasting this over into our template. So if I go back over to my template, I can come up here. I'm going to minimize this a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see, can compare between the two. And this is our fiscal year 21 data. So we're going to just start entering these numbers into here. And we know for these ones, we know that the S1% would be our section 1%. And here it shows it as 81.82. So I'd put that number here. And the next one is 35. Oops. Okay. We've got 0%, 0. And again, we want to put these numbers in. If you leave one of these cells blank, it's going to, your Excel automated calculation will treat that number as missing or as a 0% in its calculations, okay? So you want to make sure these are filled out with a number that you actually want. So we've put in the percent, the section percent, and the total percent. And now we're going to go to the COVID impact questions, which for fiscal year 21 are the variable names start with a question number. So 1.12 is this COVID impact section 1, and we see a 1 is listed here. So we're just going to put a 1 down. And section 2 is a 1. Section 3 is a 1, and again, we're just using these drop downs and we're copying exactly what we see. If for some reason this cell is left blank and there's nothing there, you would click missing from this drop down. So all of these are 1, so I'm just going to put 1, 1, 1. Great. So we've entered in all our fiscal year 21 data. Now we're going to minimize this. And we're going to enter in our fiscal year 22 data, which is here. And I've already prepped it the way I want it. So we're not going to do that part again. But again, you just highlight the variables you want, and then you just transpose it over when you are ready to enter, and then filter by the color. So the section percents here start with 75. So we're just going to put 75. And again, like I said previously, I'm not including the percent symbol. The percent symbol put into this template is going to break it. So don't do the percent symbol, just simply copy the number that you're seeing. 91.67, section 7% is 80.85. Section 8% is 25. And total percent is 67.85. And then we're going to put in the COVID impact questions, section 1 COVID impact. So on the fiscal year 22 data, we see the variable name for COVID impact section 1 is S COVID impact. So where it says here for the export data variable S COVID impact, we're going to put a 1. And then for section 2, it's a 1. For section 3, it's a 0. Section 4 is a 0. Section 5 is a 0. Section 6 is a 0. Section 7 is a 0. And section 8 is a blank. So we're going to put missing here. Oops. No, we're going to put missing. So as you can see here, we've got a blank here. So we're going to put a missing here. This data was missing in our data set. Okay, so once that data entry is complete, you can review the findings in the tables and charts. You can look at to see what changed, and you can adjust any labels that you need to adjust in the charts, like I mentioned previously. So that's like something that you might have to do, as the labels can sometimes get wonky. And lastly, once you're done reviewing, you can copy and paste or print these out directly from Excel. So again, to copy and to print, you just go to File, Print, and here are all the charts. This one is the one that I currently have selected. Or you can Command C and put it into a new document, or a document that you're working on. Command Z. And you want to, when you print them, you paste them, you want to paste them as pictures, because then they turn out a little bit nicer. Great. So that is how you copy and paste or print. And remember, these are not, this template itself, so this Excel file is not a public-facing document. We don't want you sharing this template outside of your organization. We do want you sharing the tables and charts that come out of it, but we want you to take them out of this template and put them into either communication material or print them out directly and make them a little bit nicer for your user. That way your data that you put in here stays with you and is not shared outside of your organization. Great, and that is the ending of our demonstration today. Thank you so much for watching this video. For any other questions you have about this template, please feel free to reach out to our team at evaluatesnaped@ucnr.edu. Thank you again.